Welcome back to Closer Look. It's Monday, the second day of February, also known as Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day.
Yes.
Do you pay close attention to that?
You know what? No. but it's always interesting to see what they predict. Have you been following along?
Well, I get lost in how many groundhogs there are.
Well, this is it, though. It's now not just groundhogs. In fact, Lucy the lobster.
What? Where's Lucy the lobster?
I'm glad you asked. Lucy the lobster is in Barrington, Nova Scotia, and she is predicting an early spring. So I'm on Team Lucy.
But what does it look? Does it look for its shadow, the lobster? What does it do?
I don't know. I'm just reading the stuff. What else do we have? Let me take these off so I can see. Fred Lamarmot in Quebec predicts an early spring.
Okay.
All right, so we're on Team Fred as well. Van Isle Violet in Nanaimo, BC is predicting 6 more weeks of winter. And of course, the infamous Puxatawny Phil in Pennsylvania, who resides, I kid you not, in Gobbler's Knob, predicted 6 more weeks of winter.
Who's the other one, the Wyerton Willie or something?
Oh, yeah, Wyerton Willie did not see his shadow. So Wyerton Willie is saying early spring. However, if you go back to the year 2000, until last year, Wyerton Willie's rate of accuracy is 29%.
Really?
So how he still has a job.
That's crazy. Could you imagine your job success was 29%?
I know.
You're at least in the 30s.
You would not be sitting across from me.
That's great.
Tell you
Yeah,
that.
it doesn't. I don't understand. I didn't forget which one is if they see their shadow or they don't see their shadow.
I think if you don't see it,
you got to look it up, eh?
Well, I don't want to
Google
get this
AI.
wrong.
What's it called?
No, it doesn't say. But I think if you do see your shadow,
If
they run back
the
in.
rodent sees
Yeah,
it,
if the
so
rodent
not if I
sees.
see
Yeah,
my
well,
shadow.
I don't. That's a whole other topic.
All right.
If the rodent sees their shadow, they run back in for 6 more. That's the thing,
Okay,
right? 6 more weeks. If
Okay.
they don't see it, then it's coming early.
I see. Okay. All right. Good to
And
know.
for the record, I can't believe we've talked this long.
Yeah,
on
that's it.
Groundhog
Well, it's
Day.
nice talking to everybody tonight. What are we at, 30 minutes of the show already?
Good night, everybody.
I know. Well,
You know what? Just to segue into tonight's topic, which is anything but Groundhog Day, because every day, no 2 days, it seems, are alike.
yeah, there's been quite it feels like when we look back, I was just looking back at our past episodes from the last few years on this podcast, and it just the rapid rate at which the world has changed and so much has changed, and the how quickly it's changing. We just talked with Joel Connor about the 4-day work week last week.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that conversation too, and his discussion about AI and how we all know how AI. We don't quite know how it's going to change. But we know it's going to change the workforce, right? And his notion that employers need to use that shift to AI to incentivize workers to say, we want you to adopt these new ways of doing your job,
Right.
and in return, you're going to get a shorter work week out of it, but you're still going to get paid the same.
Yeah.
Which was I found fascinating. Right, we always talk about how AI is going to change the way we do things, and it's also going to impact. So it's not just going to impact people who have jobs in the next 50 years. It's going to impact students who are going to get into those jobs. So how we train students in the college and university sector, for example. And we spoke, I think it was before Christmas, with Jackie Pichette.
Yes, it was.
She's from RBC. She's Thought Leadership, I think it's called.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And she and a team of folks put together a report about how we need to have a drastic change in the way the post-secondary institutions run, kind of shaping the system to deal with the jobs of the future. And she talked about a lot of interesting things. And she had written a column just the other day in Policy Options, and she talked about how. Remember, she talked to us about how maybe one thing would be to position Canada as NATO's kind of wild fighting nation. That we're the leaders on that front. And other ways we need to switch gears to make sure that kids coming up through the post-secondary system are prepared for the jobs of tomorrow, right?
Right.
And I think it's a good opportunity for us, just thinking about all the stuff that Joe talked about with us, to go back and revisit her conversation, because it's really enlightening. And, it was fascinating to me at the time, but I find even just a few months later, it's even more relevant. So it's definitely a good time to go back and listen.
A new report from the Royal Bank of Canada says the country's post-secondary education system needs to take urgent and coordinated action in these uncertain economic times. Joining us tonight to talk about the report is Jackie Pichette. Jackie is the Director of Skills Policy for RBC Thought Leadership. Jackie, great to see you. Appreciate your time tonight.
Great to be here, Scott. Thanks for having me.
All right, before we dive into the report, Jackie, can you tell us about RBC Thought Leadership? What exactly is it?
Right, great question. So we are a think tank housed in Royal Bank of Canada. So we cover a range of areas, all related to the economy, interested in ensuring that Canada has a strong economic growth outlook. So I'm the lead of our skills policy research area, but I have counterparts in agriculture, energy, AI and technology. So we're covering the gamut of it and putting out thoughtful research that hopefully is of use to sectors like the post-secondary sector.
All right, let's get into the report. It's called Powering a Post-Secondary Pivot, Bold Ideas to Advance National Ambitions in Defense and Space, AI, and Energy. What is the pivot we need, Jackie, and why?
Ooh, that's a big question. We're not alone in noticing this. So RBC Thought Leadership over the summer, in partnership with a group called the Business Higher Education Roundtable, we convened a series of discussions with industry and post-secondary leaders, policy thinkers as well, about the state of the post-secondary sector. And kind of this productivity paradox that Canada is experiencing, where we have really high and impressive educational attainment on the one hand, and then on the other, we have productivity that's going down. We have economic growth kind of at a stalemate. So what's going on there, and what's the disconnect? And we heard loud and clear from those discussions, again, in every region of the country, that the post-secondary system, generally speaking, is not quite in step with where the economy is moving, how quickly things are changing, and the skills that students, graduates are going to need to be successful and able to pivot with the economy as it changes. So we need to see programs that are modernized. We need to see curricula that are aligned with the directions that the labor market's going. But to be able to do that, we also need to address the funding crisis in the post-secondary sector. So we need for the institutions to be able to maneuver in the way that I think government and industry is asking them to, and students, they need to be less busy putting out fires, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm. And there's definitely some fires that they're putting out now. Just as this report comes out, we're at a time where we see colleges and universities across the province, across the country, slashing programs, cutting staff, largely because of the new cap on foreign students. It's kind of a perfect storm of bad timing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the federal cap on international students is the most recent, I guess, change that has impacted institutions, but it's kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, in the sense that provincial funding across the country has been, in real terms, declining over the past decade, and tuition has largely been frozen. So post-secondary programs at the undergraduate level across most disciplines cost about the same as they would have a decade ago. Mm-hmm. There's not many other services or products in Canada that you can say that about.
Mm-hmm. Jackie, as we talk about this pivot we need to make, it's a lot more than just changing the programs we teach or changing the curriculum of certain things we do. Is it pretty much where we need to break this thing open and start over?
I think it depends on the institution. I think it depends on the industries surrounding the institution. I think there are some really exciting examples across Canada right now of institutions doing things differently. I met with someone from the University of Calgary a couple of weeks ago, and they told me about their new energy program that is setting students up for the energy sector broadly. So it's an undergraduate program that, rather than focus on one specific career in energy, recognizing that sector experiences a lot of boom and bust, they're giving people a breadth of knowledge with the understanding that, you're probably going to have to come back like the rest of us and upskill at some point during your career, but this will give you the foundation to be able to do that and adapt. I think that's a great example. There's probably many others out there, but in a lot of cases, I do think that curricula need to, and I'm speaking with the benefit of having heard these conversations over the past few months, and people describing to me how in general terms, curricula really do need to be readjusted, right? Especially with AI. The comment, one of the people I spoke with had said, in an age where access to information and answers to most questions are available in our fingertips, right? We have handheld devices now where we can answer most questions very quickly. It means that education, which traditionally has focused on making sure students are able to answer complex questions, it needs to shift to ensuring they're able to ask creative ones. And that's a pretty big reorientation.
That's a great point. And we talk about AI all the time in our industry as well, and in so many different industries. And your report talks about how we need a post-secondary education system now where everybody, no matter what field they're in, has to be able to use these tools to their advantage. That's one of the things that came out of this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we heard that every business really needs an AI department. So that's industry. That's what they're doing. But the implication is that every student, no matter what discipline they're in, should expect that they'll be entering a workforce where there's an AI department, where there's an expectation that they're using AI. And we hear a lot from post-secondary about the risks and wanting to minimize those in introducing AI in the classroom. And that's fair. But there's also risks in having people join the workforce and using AI when they have no understanding of those risks, right? We should be equipping them early so that they're able to enter the labor market and leverage these tools responsibly.
It was a fascinating report to read just because, I have a teenage child as well. We're talking about potential careers and what to go into. And you talk about, how we're going to see a major boost in defense spending for one thing. And we're also, energy projects are going to be a major thing too. So can you give us an example of a school or a particular field where they need to realize this and what they can do to pivot themselves to be ready, say, for the massive defense spending that's going to happen in Canada?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Interesting. So I think there's a huge opportunity for research. So Canadian universities, polytechnics have such strength with research. And the only way that this money is going to be spent is with a big chunk of it going towards innovation. Universities are really good at ideation, not always as great at taking those ideas and moving them into the next big thing that changes the labor market, right? AI is a great example. We have the godfather of AI in Canada, and yet very little of that came of that in terms of IP or commercialization, right? So there's a big opportunity, I think, if post-secondary is willing to partner across, like if we have polytechnics and colleges partnering with universities and then with industry joining in, I think that there's a big potential there to deliver research that can push us in strategic directions. It also, those kinds of research projects can serve as work integrated learning opportunities for students, right? They're getting to be involved in those kind of interdisciplinary projects, working with industry. There's a lot of wins when we approach things that way.
Jackie, one idea was for Canada to position itself as the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's firefighting nation. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I wasn't in the room that had that conversation, but I got to read the notes and I was like, what is this? This seems like such an interesting idea. But as I did some background research for the report, I learned that Canada actually is already a leader in our wildfire management, specifically the technology side of things. So there's a government initiative called Wildfire Sat, and it's a bunch of microsatellites, they're called, that are used to track the heat, measure the heat of wildfire activity, to try and anticipate where fire is moving and strategize around how to put these fires out. And so that's great for Canada, but it could also be helpful technology, expertise that we could be deploying to partner nations and really kind of putting our stamp on the world.
One of the other interesting things that came out that I read was how maybe we need to be allowing some, say, auto workers, for example, who already have a skill to get retrained quicker, perhaps for shipbuilding or space sector. So you're actually taking people with lots of lived experience, lots of time in that industry to be retrained. How widespread could that be?
Yeah, so this is a topic I'm really passionate about. There's a style of education in the States and other jurisdictions called competency-based education. And the idea is that rather than have your program be defined by seat time, so in Canada, a bachelor's degree is 3 years or 4 years, like that's the definition of how the degree, there's other rules to it as well, but the timing of it is a big feature. In competency-based education programs, there's no time requirement. The requirement is the competencies. For someone to earn that credential, they must demonstrate that they have mastered the full set of competencies. And it means that if someone has prior learning and experience, that they can come in and demonstrate. They're able to progress through that credential, that learning experience, and get the award much faster. I think it holds so much potential for a lot of adults looking to change careers.
I can only imagine how rewarding that would be for someone too. Like maybe they see that their specialty is kind of, it's something they need to get. It's going away. It's disappearing, which is happening, right? Yeah. And they get a chance to retrain. I would assume from the experiences you've seen in other jurisdictions, it must be rewarding for these people.
Absolutely, and it's more enticing, right? If they know that they can enroll in a program that's going to be flexible, they can learn at their own pace. They're not going to be in a room full of people who are fresh out of high school and starting from scratch. They're going to be learning at their own pace with a coach or mentor supporting them and building upon what they already know rather than having to waste time repeating content material that they don't feel they need.
I guess it begs the question, Jackie, can colleges and universities actually make those changes, make those pivots?
I think they can, and they already are in some cases. So in Canada, we have a few examples of competency-based education micro-credentials. TMU, the Chang School, has some great examples, and Bow Valley College as well. And our medical programs, so specialty programs in medicine, have competency-based, it's called CBD, competency by design, or I think. So it doesn't have the time-free component, but in these programs, there's a requirement that students have to demonstrate mastery of each competency before they can move to the next one. So the students aren't able to graduate faster in medical programs in Canada, but the fact that this groundwork is laid there across all medical specialties means that it's definitely possible for post-secondary institutions to be taking these ideas and running with them. In some cases, it would be very helpful if provincial governments would change policy frameworks and restrictions so that they're less bound by seat time.
The report's obviously getting a lot of attention. I read about it this morning in the Globe and Mail. What are people in the sector? How are they reacting to it? People in the post-secondary sector?
I've been kind of shocked by how welcome some of the ideas have been, which is great. I think it helps that we are laying out the case for increased funding. I think, there's some relief that an organization as big as RBC is shining a spotlight on this issue. Post-secondary, our human capital, it's essential. If we want economic growth in this country, if we want to get productivity back on track, we're not going to do that without our post-secondary institutions. And so I think people are relieved to hear that. Nobody wants to hear, hey, you have to change what you're doing. But I don't think anyone in the post-secondary sector right now would say, everything's fine and we don't need to change. So I think there's an openness for sure.
Absolutely. You talked about funding. It's an endless question. You mentioned about tuition being frozen. Is it fair to ask you whether you think it's time for tuition to be unfrozen in Ontario?
Yeah, that's come up a lot. Obviously, in an ideal scenario, there'd be more provincial funding to dedicate to the sector, but there's really deserving competition for that funding right now in healthcare and elementary schools, you name it. So I do think there's probably room to increase tuition or to provide institutions the flexibility to do that, provided there's strong student financial assistance programs in place, because I think some of the issues we're talking about, major energy projects, for example, we need to upskill a lot of people. And the last thing we want to do is limit access to post-secondary education right now. So I think those financial assistance systems will be really important. But there are lots of people right now who can afford to pay more for post-secondary. We're not paying the true cost of those experiences right now, and probably more of us should be.
You did mention the foreign student cap as well. Was that something that came up during the discussions with your group? Did the government hit the right balance on this, do you think?
Yeah, that came up a lot. I think the predominant view that we heard was that there's been an overcorrection, and that we might anticipate the pendulum to swing in the other direction. The challenge with that is, especially when we look at colleges in Ontario in particular, a lot of programs are being closed right now. It's very difficult to just stand those programs back up when the time feels right to, open the doors again. And so I think it'd be wise for government to be paying attention to that and understand that, the decisions being made now will have long-term implications.
There's Jackie Pichette, the Director of Skills Policy for RBC Thought Leadership. Jackie, thanks for your time tonight. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You as well.
Just thinking back to the groundhog thing for a second, it really doesn't matter whether he, she, the lobster sees the shadow or not.
The lobster.
It's February in Canada.
Yes.
Right? We're going to be looking at snow and cold for the foreseeable future.
But you know what? I think February is the turning of the corner. I love February.
Really?
Yeah. Well, pitchers and catchers are going to report that soon you're going to hear their cleats walking down to the spring training.
Sidebar. Joe Carter just announced today to have his self immortalized in a statue outside of Rogers.
Yeah, I heard that too. That's an interesting choice. What do you think of that choice? We could have a whole other show on that.
We could.
I know he had the biggest, most iconic moment, I would say, for the Jays.
Yeah.
But was he the greatest Blue Jay? I don't know.
Certainly the greatest moment.
Greatest moment.
I think.
Yeah.
Touch 'em all, Joe.
Yeah. It went over the fence by like 6 feet.
Doesn't matter.
It wasn't like a deep home run.
It's like golf. There's no pictures on a scorecard, right?
That's right. All right, we'll see. You're going to be there for the unveiling?
I can't remember the date.
Are they going to put it beside the Ted Rogers statue?
They're actually taking Ted and moving him to one of the corporate offices.
Oh,
so Ted's out. Ted's gone.
Out. Oh, what does his family think of that?
I don't know.
That's kind of like is that a step down?
Well, I mean, he's dead. I don't think he...
It's true. It's a good point. It's a statue.
It is a statue. All right. Closer look at villagemedia.ca. What do you think about Groundhog Day? Is it phooey? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Zach Trunzo at the helm tonight. Derek Turner on assignment this evening. For Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for joining us. Let's do it again tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.